Over the last 16 years, we've got a steady stream of 20 novels set in Elan. And with over one book per year, we've never had to wait long for new content. But with 3 of the 4 series now complete, what would happen next has long been in question. But Sullivan has finally broken his silence and announced his plans, which includes doing something he once said he would never do.
I have always told everyone that I would never write a continuation of the Riyria Revelation because the end is perfect. However...
But before we make the announcement, we need to go back in time. Over a decade ago, Sullivan finished his first series, Riyria Revelations, and in doing so, he ended the series in a huge culmination of everything that came before, involving huge stakes, reveals, and action. But because of this, he decided not to write any books or series that took place after that timeline, as how could he top what he had already written? So instead, he went the other direction and started writing about the time directly before the Revelation series in the Riyria Chronicles. Next, he jumped back 3,000 years with the Legends of the First Empire series, which spans 6 books, and finally, he wrote the Rise and Fall series, which consisted of the books which spanned the series. But while each book and series had their own plot lines, behind the scenes, Sullivan was creating a larger narrative, a narrative that every series added to. And by doing this, it would allow him to do something previously thought impossible, which was create something larger than the climax of Riyria Revelations. A through line where the stakes are higher, the world is more massive, and the number of characters is countless. Finally, Sullivan was ready to announce the cycle. The Cycle is a series that takes place later chronologically than Riyria Revelations, and is thought to wrap up the hidden narrative we've been discussing. But what is involved in the series is still mostly a secret. Both because Sullivan has kept it a secret, but also because it's still being written, so things could change. Sullivan has said he won't release any books until the entire series is written. Which leads us to perhaps what is the scariest part of this video, which that he has said if the series does not meet his incredibly high expectations, he would scrap it and not release it.
But I may not actually release it because I will write all the books in advance.
Gotcha.
And if I don't feel that it comes up to the quality that it needs to, I won't release them. And I've done stuff like that before. I'm kind of crazy.
But enough worrying. Let's talk about what we know about the series so far. From what we've been able to gauge from the whispers, it sounds like the initial plan is for this cycle to be a 5-book series. Sullivan would also include another 3 books finishing the Chronicles series, but tying in closely with the cycle. And finally, several short stories to set the stage. And that is where we get some good news, because the first short story is already written. The Storm is a short story thought to take place sometime between Drumendor and Revelations, and will release as part of the Unavowed anthology, which will most likely release in the next couple months. So while the next Elan book is probably well over a year away, the short stories will be key to understanding the cycle. Which brings us to our next point. While Sullivan and many readers have always recommended that new readers read in publication order, Sullivan, while writing, has always kept in mind that readers could start with any book and really read it in any order. But the cycle is different. This series is being written as if a reader has already read every other book in Elan. There will be no backstory given, no hand-holding. Sullivan has even joked about requiring a test to prove that you've read every other book before starting the cycle. So, where do we go from here? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the next thing we're going to get is the short story The Storm, which I'll put a link down below where you can pre-order. Sullivan has also created a section on his website specifically made for updates to the cycle, as well as a Discord group, so I'll put links to both of those down below as well. And finally, in order to fill the time gap, the Sullivans are creating a spoiler-filled podcast called Sullivan Spoils, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Be sure to subscribe and watch my other videos to learn more about the world of Elan and Riyria. Thanks!